and from Rays of the One Light, weekly commentaries on the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita. This week's topic is activity versus inner communion. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. Last week we contemplated the well-known story of Martha and Mary. Traditionally, this story has been offered to show two classic approaches to salvation, the first through action and the second through prayer. The excuse of the Marthas of this world has always been, the church needs its Marthas too. Treatises, moreover, have been written to justify the Martha approach to piety, praising her self-sacrifice as, perhaps, an even higher demonstration of devotion. Thus do the unmeditative workers in religion try to justify themselves. Yet the fact remains that Jesus rebuked Martha. Elsewhere, moreover, he spoke of the virtue of feeding the hungry, curing the sick, and housing those who were homeless. It wasn't that he disapproved of serving people. Wrong attitude was the object of his criticism. What he was criticizing was forgetfulness of the true goal of right spiritual action. Good deeds, outwardly, without inner communion with God, will result in good karma, but will not bring final freedom from all karma. The path to inner freedom was described by Paramhansa Yogananda in these words: be always calmly active and actively calm. As it says in the Bhagavad Gita in the 2nd chapter, he who is not shaken by anxiety during times of sorrow, nor elated during times of happiness, who is free from egoic desires and their attendant fear and anger, such an one is of steady discrimination. Do your duty in life, so counsels this great scripture elsewhere, but never lose sight of him to whom all action should be dedicated. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om. I'd like to welcome Nayaswami Dhyana to
Good morning, everyone. And I see some friends from many years back and some new friends. It's really, really a joy that I could come down and be with my dear friends, Nayaswamis Nirmala and Dharmadas, and with all of you. I've come all the way from India, and I've been here for about a month, and I'm waiting for my visa. And I'll probably be here for another few weeks, but in the meantime, it's a blessing that I can go around and share at our Ananda centers and communities. So many wishes from your Guru Bhais, the devotees in India, all around India. They send their love and their greetings and their blessings to their brothers and sisters here. And I'm sure you'll be seeing many of them visiting you over here, and you have an open invitation to come to India and visit us there. I would like to start today with a reading from Whispers from Eternity by Paramahansa Yogananda. This is a very beautiful reading. Come to me as peace in sleep and as joy when I am awake. Dear Heavenly Father, when I must sleep, come to me as peace. When I'm awake, come to me as joy. When I give kindness to others, come to me as love. When I run with high energy through my legs. When I think, send understanding through my thoughts. When I use willpower, send your willpower through me. Teach me to think, play, behave, and use my will rightly, for thou art always with me. I love to be guided by thee, for thou, more even than my parents, dost always wish the best for me. Isn't that beautiful? It's very moving. This is a wonderful topic to speak on because all of us have lived it. We've lived trying to integrate our meditative life, our practices with our busy lives, with the activity that we have. It's not one or the other, it's both and. And this is the way that Paramahansa Yoganandaji, how he approached the spiritual life. I remember a Nadi reader, like a Brigu, or a reader of these palms and leaves and a variety of things that they can read from thousands of years who you would be in this life. And this is in India only. And so I went to one, and he said, well, you are attracted to the bottom of the Himalayas because you used to live in caves. And in this life, you will go back and live in those caves at the end of your life. I went, cave? I said, me in a cave? It didn't really add up. But I think we all have that tendency to want to have a life that's seclusive, that's silent, that's away from the busyness of this world. But that's not the life that our Guru has designed for us. And when I came to Ananda, I wondered, well, what is service about? I thought this was all about meditation. And I saw people dashing here and there and serving with joy and doing all the things that were needed. And I came for myself. I didn't come for other people. You might have thought you came for yourself too. But I saw, and Swami Kriyanandji taught us, how service is joy. How as you serve, you come out of yourself and you reach your higher self and you feel love in your heart and compassion for others, and you want to help people. And this is such a beautiful part of the path that I think many paths they miss out on. You're not even allowed to serve. But we, from the very beginning, yes, you're part of the family. There's many things that you can help with. And this is how I have grown on the path from, yes, meditation, but I think doubly from seva, from service. And remember at the very beginning, Swami Kriyanandji, our teacher, he sent me to Italy. I was there with Dharmadasji, and we got the work started in Europe. And that took a lot of creativity, initiative, energy, lifting your energy up. And after that, Swami, there are many stories there, and I don't have time to tell you about those, but you can just imagine a startup in a foreign country. Then after that, Swamiji asked me, he said, now go to Africa. I mean, he called, and that was about all he said. And he didn't say where, when, who, what, how. Just go to Africa. There are people who need help there. And so I went there. I lived in a hut, no running water, mosquitoes everywhere. The doctors would appreciate that, but I'm still here. And then after that, that was a month, hot as ever, and then went to South Africa at the time of apartheid just ending. That was an experience. And then spent time at Ananda Village. And then I went to Australia and served there. Now I'm in India. This is service. India, Delhi right now is 110 degrees. It's heavily polluted. You are crowded. You are never alone in India. But it's service, and it's service with joy. It's serving our gurus. And when we went to Italy, I was remembering a story with Dharmadasji that we were with Swami Kriyanandji, and he would have us, because he would speak on the inner communion part, meditation in the churches around Italy. And we would go around, you remember, singing. He would have us singing in the churches, sing outside the churches, sing over there, sing over, and we'd be singing the teachings of Jesus and about his life. And Swamiji would speak about inner communion, meditation. And people they felt in their hearts from the music. And then as Swamiji would speak, you could feel it was like a distant past. Yes, meditation. They wanted to learn, and they did learn, many of them. And we would say that prayer is talking to God, but meditation is listening to his voice in yourself. And many people were interested and learned how to meditate. And this is a big part of our path. We have to bring the two together. And I remember when I was growing up in the church I was raised in, my grandmother was very spiritual. I think it was because of her master, through her, that I came onto the path. But she was a minister in Los Angeles, way back at those times, and that just didn't happen. But she was very spiritually minded. At the end of her life, she said to me, "I know what you're doing." Because I would tell her, and her sister was a Kriyaban. So my grandmother said, "I know what you're doing." I think she did. She was saintly. I think she was a saint, really. But in her church, the words were printed on the wall. Some of the teachings of inner communion that Jesus taught that were in the Bible, and the word said, "Be still and know that I am God." And as a little girl, I would go to that church and I would look, I said, "What does that mean?" And I don't think many knew what it meant, because nobody was still in that church. That was not a still church at all. But these are the teachings in the Bible about meditation and inner communion. And another beautiful one, "If thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be filled with light." And you may remember the story of Dr. Lewis, Master's first disciple in America. He came to him, he was a Bostonian, and he met Master. He said Master was all orange. You know, he had his long hair, dark skin, orange robes. And Dr. Lewis came, and Master knew who he was, and but Dr. Lewis wasn't quite sure. So Dr. Lewis said, "Do you know what this means? If thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be filled with light." He said, "I've asked many ministers, and no one has explained it to me." And Master said, the blind leading the blind both fall into a ditch," quoting Jesus. And the doctor said, "Well, do you know what that means?" And Master said, "I think so." And he said, "Have you seen the light he's talking about?" Master said, "I think so." Just a beautiful answer. And he said, "Can you show it to me?" And Master said, "I think so." And he sat Dr. Lewis down on the floor with him, cross-legged. Dr. Lewis said, "For sure, I was not in the full lotus." But I tried my best to sit in front of him. And then Master, it was so beautiful, he asked him, before he showed him anything, he asked him a question. And I think this is the question he asked all of us. He said, "Will you love me always as I will love you?" meaning God's love. God is asking, will you love me always as I will love you? And Dr. Lewis said, I didn't know what to think. It was my first meeting with him. But I said yes, because you see, I could feel the love. So beautiful. And so then Master, such a touching story, he brought his forehead to Dr. Lewis's forehead. He didn't pull out the Bible and the Gita, and he said, he put his forehead on his forehead, and Dr. Lewis, he saw the great light of God. So beautiful. And he said, then he showed him the 1,000-petaled lotus. And Dr. Lewis said, once he showed that to me, it never left. A beautiful experience of inner communion with God. And only a master, with the practices they give, with all that they tell us to do, can guide us to that point where we have that inner communion with God. And so this is the teachings of Jesus Christ, the teachings of Yoganandaji, Babaji, that Jesus appeared to him and said, my followers are doing good works, but they have forgotten the essence of my teaching, to commune with God inside. Let us send someone who can teach. And who is that but our Guru? Paramahansa Yogananda was sent to the West to talk on, to share with people original Christianity and original yoga, and show that the essence was the same. And so this is why Master came, to bring inner communion, to bring meditation. And he said Jesus Christ practiced Kriya Yoga or something similar. And he taught it to his disciples. He taught it to, it's in Autobiography of a Yogi. And it's so beautiful to think of it, that inner communion meditation is something that many, if not all, great masters practice. How do you put that with an active life, with activity? Well, Master said meditation helps your service. Service helps your meditation, that you need both. And it's with the right spirit, the right attitude, that's important for service. There was the one nun, you may remember the story from the New Path, where Master told her, you work too hard. And she said, okay, sir, I won't. Master meaning Yoganandaji. She said, I won't work so hard. So she thought she could leave some of her jobs. He gave her more to do. And then she thought, well, that's strange. But he says, but you must not work so hard. And she said, well, okay, sir. So she stops doing. He gives her more. That happened 3 times. He kept giving her more to do. So finally she said, Master, why don't we change that word work to service? And he says, you finally got it. All your life you've been thinking work, work, work. If you change that to service, you'll have so much energy you can do anything that's needed. And so let's remember that as we're serving, it's the attitude with which you serve that's important. And I was remembering Master, when he got his first deep experience of samadhi through his guru, Swami Sri Yukteswar. Do you remember the story? And, well, I'll tell you if you don't. So Master was meditating, and his guru called him, and he says, Mukunda! And Master, he was Mukunda then, he says, he knows I'm meditating, why is he disturbing me? And so he said, but his mind was just racing the whole time. So his guru calls him again, Mukunda, and he says, I'm not going to respond. He was very stubborn, you know. And so and then his guru calls him again, Mukunda! And Master said his guru's voice held rebuke. And so he went in and he said, I was meditating. His guru says, I know how you were meditating, like you're your thoughts like leaves in the wind or something like that. And then he strikes him on the chest, and Master goes into samadhi. You can read this beautiful poem, Samadhi, an autobiography of a yogi, and the whole story. And he's enveloped in joy, in bliss. He's just not of this world anymore. And then he comes back and he drops down to touch his guru's feet, and his guru picks him up and he says, "Now fetch a broom and let us sweep the porch." This is such a beautiful story. It wasn't like, oh, just keep going up there. He said, get down, let's be practical. And the same with Lahiri Mahasaya. Lahiri Mahasaya, you see his picture here, where he was an accountant. He was married. He had 2 children. And then Babaji calls him up to the Himalayas, and he comes there. Babaji materializes a golden palace. He promises him his love. The palace has diamonds and gems, all kinds of gems. He initiates him into Kriya there on that night. And he says, I've waited for you all these years. I mean, he just pours his heart out to his disciple. And after the Kriya, he gives him anything he wants to eat. He said, just put your hand in this vessel. And so he had some things that he enjoyed. He was just manifesting them, materializing them. And then afterwards he says, but now you must go back to your family, your job, your responsibilities. Do you think Lahiri Mahasaya really wanted to do that? And the Babaji says, you have to go back. He worked 25 more years as an accountant. It's an incredible story, but his consciousness was never touched by what he was doing. It was always in God. And we know the story of Master. And he wrote the poem Samadhi on the New York subway. He said, no one took my ticket. In fact, I don't think anyone saw me. It was completely gone. These are such wonderful things to meditate on, because otherwise we feel so heavy and burdened. But if we can lift our consciousness up, we serve from that reality. And we saw Swami Kriyanandji, and those of you who knew him, gosh, he ran circles around us. He had so many ideas always going, and so many projects that were going, and all the books that he was writing, 150 books is a lot of books, let's face it, 400 pieces of music. He traveled all over the world. He lectured to thousands and thousands of people. He built communities and centers and meditation groups and on and on and on. But he was never touched. He was always in God consciousness. And this is the thing, it's a wonderful example for us. I recall when we first went to India with Dharmadas Nirmala Ji and myself. I hope you remember this, but we would travel all over India helping people. There's teaching and all. And so we would ask for help at the beginning. People, no, I don't want to help. And we didn't know anybody. So we would get to the halls, we would set up the halls, set up the registration table, set up the book table, set up the altar, do the registration, sell the books, and then give the class. But with so much joy. I remember once serving the tea. My friend Karpani was there. We even served people the tea. But what happened was people saw us and they saw the joy. They saw they're so dedicated. My goodness, they started to help. Let me help you. I remember one man said to me initially, he says, now Dhyanaji, I know, it was after a class, we were on a panel, he said, I know you're not going to pack those boxes and pack up the truck. And I said, just watch me. And he did. And what did he do? He started packing the boxes. And, because people saw it's a part of the spiritual life. It's a part of the spiritual path. And what a joy. And I was remembering one man at one of the lectures. I don't know if you all were there then, but it was Jaya was giving the talk, Jayaji. He's one of the directors of Ananda India. It was a wonderful talk, and I think I might have helped him as well. But then afterwards, there was questions and answers. And one man raised his hand, and he asked this question. This is an Indian question. He said, well, this all sounds good, but what powers do you have? Do you have any siddhis, powers? And I just looked at Jaya. Like, not me. It was so fun. And then he said, well, and there were at least a couple hundred people there. He said, well, I don't think I really have any powers. And people, he doesn't have any. Why is he here? He doesn't have any powers. This is India for you. So I just kept looking at him. It was so fun. So then he said, but wait, I might have one power. And I went, wow, I didn't know you had any powers. And he said this, beautiful answer, the power to be happy at will. Wow. Did people come to that workshop the next day? Everybody. And how do you get the power to be happy at will? It comes from inside yourself. And then you take that into your life, and you can be happy doing anything. You can be actually happy at your job. You can actually be happy with your children. You can be happy with the traffic, or what. You can actually be happy at will. If you meditate and bring this meditative energy and clarity and magnetism and joy and peace into your life. And I'll close with this one story of, I just want to add a couple more things, then I'll close with that story. But I love sharing about all the things that are happening. But in India, we have also a program for widows who have been put out of their homes, elderly ladies. And, we take care of them. And they have a home, they have, food and clothing and all. And so the staff, they took me to some of these homes. And I honestly, I'd never seen anything like it. And I grew up in South Central Los Angeles. It wasn't easy, but this was like, it was like a war zone. And I remember one lady coming out, she was partially blind, and the other one, she could barely walk. But when they saw the Yogananda staff, they just brightened up, because it wasn't about food and clothing. It was about how those people were serving with love, raising their consciousness, giving the vibrations to them. And it's so beautiful to see also an orphanage we're serving there. The little children, you can just gobble those children up. They're so cute. And Swamiji would say, look for the ones with the bright eyes. And all their eyes are bright. And we take them from, the orphanage is so small. They sit, they they study, they sleep, they eat all in the same spot. So we go get the kids, bring them up to the ashram, let them run around, take them to the beach, let them run around, get in the water, and they're just so happy. And why? It's not so much going out, it's the love. It's what they're getting, the vibrations, the blessings. And finally, I'll end with the story of Swami Kriyanandji, who he was not feeling so well one day when he had to give the Sunday service at Ananda village at the meditation retreat. And Swamiji served so much, and I rarely saw him cancel anything. He would always, I remember once in India, he was in Italy. He was coming to India, and he said, "I'm just not feeling well." He was speaking from Italy, and I don't think I'm going to be able to come. And can you all handle it? And we said, "Yes, Swamiji, please, we can handle it. Don't worry." And it was a big program. And then within about half an hour, he called back, "I'm coming." That was just his way. He wanted to serve. And so at this particular time, he was feeling so badly. He had a kidney stone attack. And he just couldn't imagine. I think it was 2 hours before the satsang, and he just couldn't imagine doing it. But he wanted to. He wanted to give. And so what did he do? He prayed to Divine Mother. And I think that's something we should remember in serving. Just pray to Divine Mother. I want to do this. I want to serve. I want to help. Help me. And he said that just before the service was about to begin, the pain went away. And he showed us with his hand. He said it went away like this. And it was gone. And he said, I went to give the service, and I felt so much bliss. It was replaced by joy and the touch of God. He said, I felt so much joy, I still couldn't really talk at the service. Let's remember that. Think of God. Let's uplift our consciousness. Keep it uplifted. And then as we go out, we will feel God's joy in our hearts, love to be able to do anything as we serve with our meditation, inner communion. God bless you all.